everyone. Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown. I am your host, Johnny Stope. Thanks for joining us here on the Red Mile Rundown, episode 90. And of course, alongside me, as always, from flamesnation.ca, it's Robert Munich. How are you, Robert?
I'm doing great. And geez, last week was our most listened to episode in podcast history. So I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody who's tuning into the show and downloading the podcast or watching on YouTube or all that kind of good stuff. We really appreciate the support. It's been fantastic here over basically the entire offseason. Our offseason numbers have been awesome. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Yeah, I was legitimately blown away. Like I messaged Robert yesterday and the numbers, and I was like, I'm literally blown away by this. And we've set new highs for the last 4 weeks running now, and it's incredible the support that we've gotten, and we thank everyone for finding the podcast. And if you know someone looking for some more Flames content, please share with your friends, families, and other Flames fans. We appreciate you so much and for making us part of your podcast rotations. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to not miss an episode, because there's lots from Robert and I over the next course of the next couple of days here. We were talking, Robert, at one point about taking some summers off, but we keep getting numbers like this. We might give the people what they want. They just keep pounding out these podcasts in middle of July.
Well, yeah, I mean, with 960 shutting down and there not being a whole heck of a lot of discussion about the Flames, it's like, well, yeah, let's keep going. Like, let's keep talking Flames. Let's keep giving, people what they're looking for, because, the audio market right now for Flames talk is pretty much like non-existent right now. So yeah, there's a few podcasts going out there right now, and they're doing a really good job, like In the Dome and Flames Unfiltered and Barn Burner every now and then. But I think we're helping out in the podcasting department here in Flames Nation.
And happy to do it. We love podcasting, and it's always good to chat Flames. Well, we are in the middle of July, and so people are like, well, John, it's the middle of July. What the heck is there to talk about around the Calgary Flames? Well, there's a lot to talk about around the Flames, because we are starting to focus now on next season. The 26-27 season came out. The schedule comes out. We'll touch on that a little bit later in the podcast here. So people's juices are flowing here with all the signings and the trades and the schedule. I'm looking forward to games here. The World Cup's over, so now it's the push towards football and hockey seasons again. Excited to be talking about hockey here today, Robert. Let's start with let's talk about this Flames defense here. It's a log jam on the back end for the Flames. It looks like there's like 9-10 bodies back there for the Flames. How do we break this down, Robert? How do we break down these defensive pairings for the Flames? What are we looking at here when it comes to opening day with all these bodies here on the back end for Ryan Huska?
Yeah, like when I was looking at things that we could potentially talk about, I was just looking through the Flames roster, and the defense really stood out to me. Like when you take a look at this defense core, I think it's the most interesting thing heading into next season. Number one, just how are some of these guys going to progress? There's a lot of really young, talented players on this defense core right now. And then number two is, what are the pairings going to look like next year? Because I think there are some different ways that they can go about it. So if we're talking about defense pairs, like I really think how they go about their business is going to come down to what side Zane Parek's going to play on. So we know that he finished last season in the final 3 games of the year playing on the left side alongside Zach Whitecloud. And, they look pretty decent together. I think they showed some good chemistry. I think Parek did a really good job on his off wing, on his offside, which is not easy to do. Like picking pucks up off the boards with your backhand in the offensive zone is really difficult. Sometimes if you're going to make a breakout pass in the middle of the ice in your own end, you're making that on your backhand, which is not easy to do. I mean, really, the only guy in Flames history that I can remember that was really good on their offside was TJ Brody. Like he was excellent at it, and he was great on his backhand. So it can be done, but it's asking a lot from a 20-year-old player who's only played I think he only played 36 games last year or something like that. So the way I think I would go about it is I would start with Parek on the right, put him on a strong side, put him in a position to succeed, make sure that he's able to make, easier plays in the offensive and defensive zone when it comes to moving the puck. So I think my defense pairs for starting next season would be, your top pair would be Kevin Ball and Simon Nemec. They played about 190 minutes together in their one season in New Jersey in 23-24 and put up some decent results. But I like the idea of Kevin Ball being kind of like the steady stay-at-home guy, and then you have Nemec who can get up in the rush, who can use his offensive skill set to his advantage, and not have to worry too much about the defensive side because Ball is going to be back there to help. And then I'd go on the second pair, Yan Kuznetsov and Zach Whitecloud as like a total shutdown pair, both at 5-on-5 in the penalty kill. And then the third pair, Jake Middleton and Zane Parekh. And I think Middleton is a perfect partner for a guy like Parekh. Just once again, kind of similar to Ball, stay-at-home guy, big, tough. Like, if someone tries to hit Zane Parekh, like he got hit last year, now they're gonna have to deal with Jacob Middleton. And I think that's really important heading into next year. So those are my pairs heading into next year. I know it's kind of a long answer, but first pair, Simo Nemec. Second pair, Yan Kuznetsov, Zach Whitecloud. And then third pair, Jake Middleton and Zane Parekh.
Yeah, I'm going to run the conversation back to Zane Parekh here a little bit because I like what you said there. You got to remember that sample size of him on his offside at the end of the season in meaningless games, and it was only a couple of games worth. So we're not talking about a huge sample size. So to put him there with expectations might set him up for a little bit of failure. So I like getting him into the season with these guys, and I like setting up these. I had the same pairings for the record. Without talking to Robert, I came up with the exact same pairings. Because what I like about these pairings as well is you have a guy like Zane Parekh with a veteran. You have a guy like Simo Nemec with what you would call a veteran, like Kevin Ball at this point of his career, we call the veteran. And you have Whitecloud with a rookie. So you have veteran with a younger player, allowing these guys to continue to learn and have a mentor with them, kind of steadying the ship a little bit. You're talking about a team who's trying to build from the back end out. So it's important that these young defensemen have a partner they can rely on. And so I like the route we went here with getting these young players with the veteran here. And I like starting Parekh on his regular side because you want to get him comfortable in the flow of being comfortable being a National Hockey League before you start specializing in a bunch of other things. And so if he gets off to a good start this season and plays well on that side and things team-wise aren't going quite well, Huska likes to mix things up. So whatever pairs he starts game one with are probably not going to be the pairs come game like 7 or 8. Like he's going to change. He does. That's what Ryan Huska likes to do. And so maybe then that's when you switch Parekh over to the left side and say play him with a Zach Whitecloud and get him that experience. So I think it's important to remember that it was a couple of games that he played his offside, but it wasn't a big sample size. So we got to kind of make sure that you don't just throw him into the deep end of the water or into the wolves with just, hey, here's McDavid, have at it on your offside. And so I think that's important here. So what do you make, though, at the bottom part of this defensive group, Robert? There's still 4 guys we haven't mentioned yet. You have Hanley, you have Pahal, you have Brustevich, and Mr. Weeb is getting a bit of run as well in a lot of circles of conversation. What can he be for the Flames? What do you make of those bottom 4 guys? Because that's still a lot of bodies for the Flames here. What do you make? What do you do? Or do you have plans for these kind of guys? Because maybe a guy like Hunter Brustevich should start in the American Hockey League rather than being an in and out of the rotation player. Maybe Weeb does get a game or two. Can we find a trade partner for Hanley, Pahal? How are you looking at those bottom 4 guys?
Well, I mean, I think the 6 that we mentioned, Ball, Nemec, Kuznetsov, Whitecloud, Middleton, Parekh, I think those are like the slam dunk, like 6 guys that should be in the lineup basically every single night. Yeah, you're gonna work in some other players every now and then, but I think that's kind of like your core 6 for next season. And then, I think the most interesting guy out of the whole discussion is going to be Hunter Brustevich because he was good last year. Like I think both you and I were really impressed with him. I mean, this is like last season. He was a 20/21-year-old defenseman, only in his second year of pro hockey, and I thought he played really well. I thought there were some games where he was excellent and he was making a ton of smart plays and he looked like an NHL player. But at the same time, he could still work on his skating. I think he needs to get a little bit quicker. So not only quicker with his feet, but quicker with his decision making, and then also just get a little bit stronger. And I have no issue with him going down to the American Hockey League to start next season, and just let him go down there and work on his game. I'd way rather see him play 20, we'll call it 22 to 25 minutes a night first power play unit, maybe on a second penalty killing unit to learn that side of the game. I'd rather see him do that in the American Hockey League than be a number 6 or number 7 defenseman in the NHL. I actually think it's better for his overall development. That probably might piss Brstevich off, because I bet you after last year, he probably thinks to himself that, that I'm an NHL player. Like, I proved last year that I should be in the NHL. And for him to go the AHL might kind of upset him a little bit, but I think you have to kind of put that aside, and you have to explain to him that, for his development, this is going to be really good for you. And it's going to be way better than you sitting in the press box with the NHL club. So, if it's up to me, I'm, if the 6 guys that I mentioned aren't injured, like if they're all healthy, I'm absolutely sending Brstevich to the American Hockey League to start next year. And then, let him continue to grow. And then there's going to come a time next year where, if he's like dominating the AHL and he's showing that he should get a call up, you can have the conversation about trading Zach Whitecloud, or you can have the conversation about moving Parekh to the left side and maybe, looking to trade a Jake Middleton or something like that. Those are the types of conversations you can have later in the year, but I think you want to start the season, with those 6 and then put Brstevich in the American League. I'd be curious to know, like, where are you at with Brstevich right now?
Yeah, he needs to play. He's 21, right? Like, we're not talking about this 26-year-old stud on the back. We're talking about a 21-year-old who's developed into quite a good player. And he played last year out of necessity for the Flames, and he was quite good at what he did. We saw the normal rookie struggles from Brstevich, and after the Olympic break, he wasn't as effective. And I think that came to the conditioning and the pace of the game for him. And he continued. It's something that every young player, for the most part, needs to continue to work on. And so I think playing all situations, big minutes for the Wranglers makes a ton of sense for a guy like Hunter Brstevich. And I'll put Abram Reeb in that conversation as well. I think we love to rush these young players because we get really excited about watching these young players on the NHL roster, but sometimes they need to sizzle a little bit more in the American Hockey League. And I don't think there's anything wrong for Hunter Brstevich to go back and play a handful of games, a handful of months in the American Hockey League, and continually work on his craft, continue to work at making better decisions, quicker decisions. He's got great coaches down there to help him do those kind of things. The NHL team's in the same building still, so they have a lot of communication here. And if you present the message to Hunter properly, he might not like it personally, but he'll understand that. He seems like a smart enough guy to handle that type of message to him properly. And we talked about it a few episodes ago, where it's like, if he becomes undeniable, then yeah, you do. You have options there. You can trade Whitecloud. You can move Parekh to the other side and trade. There's a lot of things you could do to bring him into that lineup, especially if he's showing he's being an undeniable player. And Hunter Brstevich has an opportunity here in front of him to be one of those guys the Flames can count on for a decade or longer. But he's got to develop into that everyday NHLer, and he's close. He's really close. We saw it at times last year, Robert. You and I both raved on this podcast about how we thought he was a smart hockey player. He has that ability there. It just needs to quicken up a little bit with his pace of things. So I think American Hockey League is not a bad start for a guy like Hunter Brstevich, and he will see NHL games next year. I'm sure of it. Injuries happen, situations happen. Eventually, someone's going to come along to Craig Conroy and give him an offer that he has to take for Zach Whitecloud. The amount of smoke around his name and the insiders continually bringing him up as a guy that NHL teams are trying to target and bring into their team. Eventually, the dam's going to break there, I think, Robert, and he's going to get moved, and there's going to be an opportunity for Hunter to step into and take over a spot in this NHL lineup for the Flames. So it's all about biding time here. It's all about trying to force the hand if you're Hunter Brstevich. So take your time, go back to the American Hockey League, work on your skills, become an undeniable player, and when that dam does break of a Zach Whitecloud trade or an injury happening, you can step in there and be an effective NHLer. But I'm with you on this one here. A lot of people are calling him the odd man out. I don't think he's the odd man out. I think he's the next man up. And he just got to continually improve what he's doing and be in that specific position, easy for me to say, that when that time comes that he takes advantage of it.
Yeah, and like the other part of the Brstevich conversation is, they could trade him too. Like he's become a legit trade chip for this team. And I don't think the Flames are just going to trade Hunter Brstevich for a second or a third round pick or something like that, I don't think there's any point in doing that at this point in time. But what I think they could do is if there's someone out there, if there's another Simon Nemec out there that they really want to bring in, who's that 20, 21, 22-year-old player who they think can grow with this team, you could put him as part of a package to help entice a team to move out a player. Like I know one guy we'll probably talk about here soon is Shane Wright. If Hunter Brstevich is part of that deal and he helps you get the center who you think might be a 50 to 60 point legit second line center for your team for the next 10 plus years, that's something you have to seriously consider doing. And then if they don't want to go down that road, then they will have to move out somebody like a Zach Whitecloud. And I mean, I think we all understand why he's so valuable. He makes $2.75 million for the next 2 years as a 29-year-old right shot D who can play on your second pair. With the rising salary cap and all that, a $2.75 million Zach Whitecloud is incredibly valuable, and he has no trade protection. The Flames can trade him, wherever they want. And knowing Craig Conroy, I think he'd trade Zach Whitecloud to like a really good situation where he'd have a chance to go to the playoffs and maybe win a Stanley Cup. But like, I could see the Flames getting a ton for him. So yeah, like I think those are really interesting names to kind of watch, because I think between now, I'll call it between now and the trade deadline, I do think the Flames are going to need to make a decision. Is it going to be Brstevich or is it going to be Whitecloud? And if they want to keep Zach Whitecloud and they want to re-sign him and make him a part of this organization for, call it the next 5 to 6 years, then honestly I'd be okay with that, because I'm such a big fan of the player in person. But if they think Brstevich has the chance to be like Zach Whitecloud or even better, and he's younger and he's going to be cheaper, then that's another thing you have to keep in mind too. So how Craig Conroy goes about that is going to be really interesting. And then just quickly, just to touch on, Joel Hanley and Braden Pahal, I think those are two guys that you look to trade, even if you get, say you get like a similar player in return that can play in the American Hockey League that's on a two-way deal instead of a one-way, or a very late draft pick, a 7th or 6th round pick. I think those are the types of things that you'd be looking at if you're Craig Conroy. If you can't get that done, then I think you probably put one or both of them on waivers, and you see, maybe another team will take one of them, or, I think it'd be great for the Calgary Wranglers to have at least one of those guys down there, because I mean they're both really good leaders, they're both good players. Having a Joel Hanley down there I think would be great, and maybe having Pahal as your number 7 on the NHL roster I think would make a lot of sense. So yeah, I mean those guys are truly the odd men out in this decor right now, and I hope that they can find jobs elsewhere, because I'm a big fan of both players, both people, especially Pahal. Like I love the way Braden Pahal plays hockey, and I do think there's a role out there for him on another team as like a number 6. Like I think he'd be like a perfect fit in San Jose as an example, to go along with some toughness and Nurse and Trouba. You have Pahal back there. All of a sudden, that's not the easiest decor to play against. So that's just like one example, but yeah, like I said, I think the defense is probably the most interesting part of this team. And I think it has the potential within the next couple years here to be really, really good. If Nemec can hit, close to his ceiling, I could see him being like a legit number 2. Parekh hits his ceiling. He feels like a 60 to 70 point guy. Then you got Kuznetsov and Ball as some good options. Brstevich, like we talked about, like this decor looks really good heading into the future here, and it might actually be pretty good this season too.
Yeah, we'll get back to that conversation about Hunter Brstevich maybe being part of a trade and a young center in a second here. As for the Hanley and Pahal thing, for 2 waiver claims, those were pretty damn good players you got for just waiver claims. Good soldiers that helped you through some tougher seasons, tougher times, and so whatever happens to those 2 guys, I think we'll do right by those two players, whether they're American Hockey League traded or number 7s on this back end. I've never seen a GM get mad about having too many defensemen, so I think we'll see one of those guys stick around as your 7th guy, because someone's got to sit in that press box and eat that delicious dome popcorn while these other guys play. Before we move on to that conversation about a young center, Robert, I want to throw one thing at you that wasn't on the rundown here, but it is part of the defenseman conversation. If all goes to plan and North Dakota doesn't go all the way to the end, there's one Carson Carroll that potentially could be signed at the end of this season. How do you work that? How does that throw a wrench into what you're thinking for the Flames? Because if he signs his NHL contract, that guy's got to get games. Does it matter to you how that works out, or how would you picture that happening? Of course, in a perfect world where Carson Carroll comes out and things are going well for him.
Yeah, I mean that's another part of the White Cloud Brestevich conversation that we completely forgot about. So great shout out by you. I mean, based off of what we heard at development camp from Carson Carroll, like it sounds like the plan for him is to play only 1 year in the NCAA and then sign at the end of this season. And yeah, of course, like if the Flames sign him, absolutely put him into NHL games and give him that experience and, show him what it's like to play at that level. And then that way he can head into next off season with an understanding of, what he truly needs to work on. And I think that's going to be really important for him. So yeah, I mean, that just adds another layer of complexity kind of to this whole decor, whether it's Brestevich or a guy like Middleton or Kuznetsov, because I mean, Carroll should come in and should play right away and get those games. So yeah, I mean, I think what's going to end up happening is they will sign Carl's at the end of this season. Then he will play NHL games. I don't know how the rest of the decor is going to shake out after that, but I do think it's important to start that relationship with Carroll's and put him in the NHL, give him games, don't mess around with that whole situation and say, you know what, we want you in the American League or something like that. Like really show Carl's the respect he deserves and show him how important he is to the organization. And yeah, sign him at the end of the year and play him. But yeah, that's just going to add, a whole nother layer of some interesting storylines here as the season progresses. I mean, I would assume you probably see it the same way. Hey, like they got to sign him at the end of this year.
Yeah, it's funny too because you talk about signing Carroll's, and then you talk about trading White Cloud. Would you not want White Cloud to be a partner for Carroll's? Would he not be like a perfect partner to bring him into the NHL with? So it's kind of like a double. It's like a double-edged sword of what do you do with all these guys? What it really speaks to me as Rick Conroy clearly sees value of building a team from the back end out, and he has a lot of options of how he's gone about doing that. He's drafted a couple of guys, a couple of waiver claims. He's traded to bring in the right type of guys to have on that back end. It's a good mix of veterans and young players, and with a lot of options for the Flames. And I like that he's done that. And he's put an emphasis on playing younger players. That was the whole thing given to Ryan Huska at the end of last season. Play the young players. Let's develop these young players, and they continually do that. So I think he'll be given the highest priority because you look at a lot of these top 10 prospect lists we've seen around or circulated around, top 50 prospect lists, wherever it might be from The Athletic or whoever else it might be. Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff did one. Carroll's is one or two out of Calgary in a lot of these lists, and so high priority for this guy. So if things go well for him and he comes out of college at the end of the season, I don't care where the Flames are in the standings. Plug him in there and let him play some games. And if a Jake Middleton's got to sit for a game or two, so be it. If a young Kuznetsov's got to come out for a game, so be it. Like rotate these guys in and out. Get these guys into the lineup. So it's just another wrinkle that I just thought of as we were talking there. Hey, we got to bring this up because Carson Carroll should be, if not already, the most important prospect the Flames have currently in their system here.
Oh, he is. He 100% is.
I don't consider the Zane, Gridden, Hunter Brestevich as full prospects anymore. Those guys are just young NHLers to me. So when you talk about Flame prospects, in my opinion, we're talking Carson Carroll as the guy and Kolresny as the next couple of guys here for the Flames. So it's important that they make the room for these players here, regardless of what else is going on the roster, just to get these guys in and integrated. And like you mentioned, Robert, a positive start to the relationship.
Before we move on, what are your expectations for Yan Kuznetsov? Like
100 points, a Norris votes. Just kidding. I think he needs to build on last year. I think he needs to continually put that he is a top 6, if not a top 4 guy. I think pre-injury, you really saw him take a lot of good steps for the Flames. You really saw him settle into his game. His feet were really well. He was tasked with being the guy to play with the awful, and all due respect to number 52, just the horrendousness of Mackenzie Weegar last year. He played a big chunk on the left side with the cave that was Mackenzie Weegar, the black hole on that side of the ice. And I think he fared a lot better than the numbers might suggest with the plus minus side of things. And I think that he slowly became a really good player. That injury came at an awful time for Jan Kuznetsov, because I thought he found his footing. So he's going to be a stay-at-home defenseman guy. And the Flames need a couple of those, given the high-octane offensive guys they got on the right side there. They're going to need someone to just kind of hold the fort. And I think this guy could be a guy who plays with a Bristevich or a Perek down the road here for a lot of years and be that steady force. So for him, continue to build on what you did last year. You're probably going to have a better, steadier defensive partner with you this year. You're going to have all the opportunity in the world to be a top 6 guy. Just show that you belong and continue to develop that role, because I think he's really on a good path. I quite like what Jan Kuznetsov's brought to the Flames.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us expected at the start of last season that Kuznetsov would be kind of one of the breakout players of last season.
No.
I mean, the Flames, I mean, they put him on waivers and they kept Daniil Miramanov over him. Like, that kind of shows you what they thought of him too a little bit. So, I mean, number one, good on him for breaking out last year. And
yep.
I need to see more before like I have like a really strong opinion on Kuznetsov and like what he's going to be in the future. I mean, yes, last year was a really good season for him, and all the credit to him for stepping up and playing well. And like you said, not an easy assignment last year. I mean, Mackenzie Weegar was awful last year, and putting a young player alongside a guy like Weegar who was struggling like he was is not an easy thing to do. So, credit to Kuznetsov. And yeah, I want to see more from him next year before we kind of make a decision on, is he like a number 4? Is he more of a third pair guy? Because I think he can go in either direction. So once again, between Perek, Nemec, Kuznetsov, eventually Carson Karls, Hunter Bristevich, like there's so many interesting things to watch next year at this decor. Like I think it's fascinating. And like between the goaltending and the defense, I actually don't think it's bad. I mean, obviously the goaltending is fantastic, especially if Cooley can play close to the level he was at last year, and we all know what Dustin Wolf's capable of. But between the goaltending and the back end, I don't think it's a bad group for the Flames. I actually think it's pretty solid, kind of right around, if you're to kind of combine the two, probably in that kind of 17 to like 12, ranked in the NHL in that department. It's the forward group that is a tire fire right now, to say the least. That forward group, like people have been posting like photos like the daily face-off lines for next year, and everyone's saying like, is this like one of the worst forward groups an NHL team is going to put on the ice within like the last 5 years? And
yes, it is.
Honestly, I don't think that's an unfair assessment. Like it's a little ugly.
Real quick before I comment on that, Jan Kuznetsov finished the season with 20 minutes ice time a game average at only -8 compared to Mackenzie Weegar's in his 23 minutes, finishing a -37, sorry, 35. So just a little bit of context there for the young player. He held his own in a tough situation. That Flames forward group is horrendous. It's not great. It's a lot of left shots and a lot of guys who don't like to shoot also on that roster. A lot of pass first type of players, which leads perfectly, Robert, into the next conversation, kind of tying in the trading for a center conversation into this forward group conversation. The Flames need an infusion of young players. They need an infusion of talent on this roster, and people are going to be like, well, look at their top prospect list. It's full of coming in forwards. You got the Reshnies, the Wittenbachs. You got Hextall, Potter, Stocksalius, whatever you think of him. You got guys in the minor leagues that could potentially be part of the Flames roster down the road here, depending how they develop in the American Hockey League, like Suniev, for example. Are the Flames in almost a must trade for or must acquire a young center, a young forward conversation? Because you look at that group here, Robert, you mentioned it there. It's not really inspiring. So how do you fix it? How do we get better with it besides just having these prospects? I think the Flames might be in a category coming up here soon where we got to acquire someone. So how do we do that? So what do you make of that conversation of bringing in a guy, and a guy like Shane Wright is a guy that is mentioned over and over on social media?
I do think it makes a lot of sense, especially when you consider Michael Backlund is going to retire soon. He's probably only got, maybe two seasons left in him. Might push 3 seasons. You got Ryan Strome, who's a pending UFA. You don't really have a fourth line center right now, and you have Morgan Frost, who is also a pending UFA. We don't know if he's going to want to stick around or if the Flames are going to want to keep him long term. So, down the middle of the ice right now, they got nobody. Yes, Cole Reshny's coming, which is great. I remember hearing Pat Steinberg on Flames Talk a few weeks ago saying that he heard Theo Stocksalius is viewed as more of a winger than a center. So you might take him out of the equation. I don't know if Cullen Potter is going to be a center at the NHL level. He almost profiles more as a winger to me. And then you have Jack Hextall, who's probably, 4 to 6 years away from becoming, a true difference maker at the NHL level. So, yeah, I mean, it's basically, for the next couple of seasons, it's Reshny and then maybe Frost if they re-sign him. So, when you keep that in mind, take that all into consideration, going after a guy like Shane Wright, I think makes a lot of sense for the Flames, especially at his age right now. Like, he's only 22 years old. They made the Morgan Frost trade a couple years ago, and Frost was like 24, 25 at the time. And I just thought that was a little old for where the Flames are at. So if I'm Calgary, I'm not really looking at a 24, 25, 26-year-old center, but a guy who's 22, I think is super enticing. And I mean, you take a look at, I know last season was not good for him at 27 points in 74 games, but, in his 20/21-year-old year in the NHL, his first full season, he put up 44 points in 79 games, 19 goals, 25 assists. That's some pretty impressive production for a guy that was lower in the lineup, didn't get a ton of power play time, was not playing with the most talented teammates. He did that as a 20/21-year-old. So he's the kind of guy I would be willing to take a risk on. That profile of player, I don't know if Wright himself is the best option. Like, if you're the Flames, I think you have to do your due diligence and figure out what type of person he is. Because I mean, we don't know this. We don't know anything about the player, but just from rumors you hear, it sounds like there might be a bit of an attitude issue there, or he might not be the most likable guy in the world. Like in Ben Kuzma in Vancouver, he's a writer for one of the newspapers out there. He wrote a story about how Shane Wright, he wants to go to Vancouver. He thinks Vancouver's a really good spot for him. And he had mentioned in there that like Wright's agents or somebody like that had described Wright as an alpha male that hasn't got an opportunity in Seattle. I'm like, that's just kind of a weird way to describe somebody. Like, if you think like you're a 22-year-old kid in the NHL and you're calling yourself an alpha male, like, that's kind of weird. So I don't know. There's just some like odd things going on with Wright and like his personality and all that. So if you're the Flames, you have to do your research and figure out if he's going to be a fit in your locker room or not. And if you think he is, then yeah, I think he's 100% the type of guy you take a chance on. I mean, 4th overall pick, like I mentioned, showed a lot of promise in the NHL in his first full season. Even his first year in pro hockey with the Coachella Valley Firebirds, 47 points in 59 games as a 19/20-year-old. Like, those are really impressive numbers for Wright. And I think he's the kind of guy that if he were to come to Calgary, I think the Flames could easily make him the first line center. And I think they could give him a ton of minutes at 5-on-5 and on the power play. And you could play him with some pretty, talented guys. Like, I look at like a Matvei Gridin, I look at a Matt Coronado, those types of players, if you put them on his wing, I think there's potential for Wright to be a consistent 50 to 60 point guy who can play those second line center minutes and then, eventually learn, how to play the defensive side of the puck and, maybe play a little bit on the penalty kill, continue to play on the power play. Like, that's the type of guy I think he can be. So yeah, if I'm the Flames, like I said, you do your research, and if you figure out he's not going to be an issue in the locker room, he's 100% the type of guy I think they should go after. I mean, are you kind of in the same boats, or are you not as much of a Wright guy?
A lot to unpack there. That's a great answer for me, Robert. First off, I love the cockiness from Wright. I think that's the kind of cockiness you don't mind in a player, because I think you can cultivate that into confidence rather than just cockiness. So calling yourself an alpha in that type of room, if you got the right room to put him into place, I think that could be cultivated in a positive. And so he's a young player. He's a young player that has a lot to learn. I think he's still is burning from not being picked number one. I think he's still burning at the fact that he wasn't given all the keys to the kingdom in Seattle, like Matty Beniers was. And I think it's a guy who's primed for a change of scenery. Sometimes situations matter. And I think the situation Shane Wright is in has been an awful situation. And it's a lot of it's Seattle's fault as well. That's not a good organization. It's not well run. They didn't start off very well. And they got a lot of work to do in Seattle to put together an actual team that resembles NHL hockey. No disrespect, of course. But I think this is the type of player that you can build something around if you put him in the proper situation. Some of it, yes, has to be on the player to take advantage of a spot that you're put into or you're given. You have to have the right attitude and the right approach for it, and the right message has to be sent to the player. So a lot of it has to be put on the player itself, and then it's on the organization to give him an opportunity. You just went through a nice list of potential things that you could have Shane Wright do. He can play top 6 minutes. He can be a guy you count on for a lot of situations. He brings a right shot, which the Flames organization severely needs. He brings a lot of things to the room, and you boil it right down. This is a very skilled hockey player who can play a premium position, and he should be able to do it at the NHL level. He has the tools to be a guy the Flames could target. This Flames roster, they need something. Having Reshny coming is nice. Having Potter coming is nice, who should be probably a winger. Stock Shalius is nice. There's still not a ton of center depth coming for the Flames, so I think it's very important that they target a guy like Shane Wright. I'll bring another name, another Pat Steinberg steal here. I'll bring another name to the table. It's not just guys like Shane Wright. What about a Connor Geekie from the Tampa Bay Lightning? Another center who is behind a few other guys in the lineup, a guy that you can elevate in the Flames lineup. Matthew Poitras from Boston's another name I can see out there being in a similar situation. All of these guys have one thing in common. They need to be given an opportunity to show what they are and to be able to elevate what they are in the NHL. And the Flames have a need where they need a guy that's like that to step into the lineup to elevate their game. You have a lot of mid-20s to late 20s players in that forward group right now. Frost is nice. Farabee's nice. Pospisil's nice. You need that next guy. You need that X factor. And a guy like Shane Wright or a Geekie, they could come in here and immediately be a top 6 center and a guy that you can count on. And if it doesn't work, c'est la vie. But if it works and you hit on one of these players, well, then you got someone to pair with Cole Reshny in your top 6 or top 9. Now you have another guy to count on, and I really do it. I loved that acquisition of Frost at the time. I'm with you, though. The age was just wrong. But because Frost would have been another guy that you could have done the same thing with here. Bring him in, give him all this opportunity to show that he is more than what he has shown so far in the National Hockey League. So I like the idea of the Flames going out and targeting a young center. It's got to be like that 21, 22-year-old range to fit in with the age group the Flames are building here and to fit in with the rebuild here. But it just makes a ton of sense. And a guy like Shane Wright could be a difference maker for the Flames here, because no disrespect to Puckpedia has Martin Pospisil as your 4C, or a Tyson Gross as your 4C. No disrespect to Michael Backlund at the age of 109. Like, these are fine guys, but they're not going to be difference makers for your National Hockey League roster. Shane Wright could be that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I like the idea of the Flames just taking some swings on young centers. I got no problem with that, especially because, I mean, they do have a lot of assets that they can move out, whether it's prospects, because, I mean, the prospect system right now is pretty loaded.
Yeah.
So whether it's prospects, whether it's draft picks, whether it's NHL players on the roster right now, I mean, they don't have like the studs that maybe some other teams would be willing to trade, but there's a lot of like good, talented players that the Flames could offer up in some of these deals. I mean, just taking a look at their lineup, I mean, Morgan Frost, Connor Zary, Martin Pospisil, Max Siplikov. I mean, those are guys that you could throw into a deal, up front. On the back end, we talked about Brstevich, Jake Middleton, maybe a Yan Kuznetsov, just depending on where you're at with him. If it helps get you a really good young center, I don't hate the idea of throwing a guy like Devin Cooley in there. We talked about Zach Whitecloud. And then on top of that, you got some prospects too like a lot of prospects in this organization right now that you might be able to throw into a deal. And then, when you look at the draft picks as well, they have they have the 2 second-round picks in the next 3 drafts. So it's like they own their own draft picks, and they have Colorado, Vegas, and Minnesota's. They got Minnesota's 3rd-round pick next year along with their own. And then you're going to add to that too. I mean, there's going to be guys in this roster that you're going to end up trading. Basically the guys that I had mentioned are probably going to fetch them, at least another 2 or 3 draft picks on top of that. So you can move those as well. So they have the assets to do it. Like we talked about in the past, the Dougie Hamilton trade back in 2015. And I think one of the reasons why I was kind of against that deal at that time and even today was just the fact that they were just starting the rebuild and they didn't have a ton of assets to move. Like their prospect system was not loaded at the time. They did not have very many draft picks at the time, but now, that's the opposite now. Now they have a lot of draft picks and they do have a lot of prospects that they can move. So because you're asset rich, like I wouldn't mind seeing them move a few of those assets to get a Shane Wright or to get a Connor Geeky and just see what they can do. I mean, the thing I like about Geeky, he's 6'4", 212 pounds. So he's big. And last year in the American Hockey League, basically at the same age as Shane Wright, over a point per game, 59 points in 57 games, 60 penalty minutes, like this guy's kind of a beast. So, if you were to acquire him or Wright and you put them in positions to succeed and you make them top 6 centers on the Flames and you give them power play time, I am absolutely 100% in for those types of trades right now. Just unless like you don't move out, like your top end prospects or 1st-round picks, like that's completely off the table. But if you want to throw in a Brustevich and Frost and maybe a draft pick for one of these guys, like that's the type of move I think I would be interested in if I were the Flames.
Yeah, we talked before the draft about all those draft assets the Flames had, about them being aggressive. For me, that being aggressive continues. This is part of that. This is part of, okay, we've acquired so many assets, draft picks. We have prospects up the wazoo. Let's turn those into now a player that we can use for a decade or more. A guy that we can probably center around a top 6, help guys out, help elevate the skill level of this roster. And going out and getting a Geeky or a Shane Wright does exactly that, in my opinion. If it's Morgan Frost, Hunter Brustevich, and a 2nd-round pick, then I think that's a good package to send off for a player like that. It's a good bet to move off of for those guys. What if it's Zach Whitecloud and Andrew Basha and a 2nd-round pick for those guys? There are types of trades out there that you can acquire that you can, okay, these assets out make a ton of sense, and we're bringing in an asset that we really, really like, and we're going to take a nice bet on. They've made this bet with Simon Nemec. Why not do it with the center as well? The Flames team doesn't have enough skill, so we got to bet on some of this skill here. So it's interesting to see how that conversation goes there, Robert. Speaking of skill, speaking of young centers, speaking of young players, there's one young player who seems to not be on the same page as Ryan Huska, and he's been on the market, and clearly the market's not there for Connor Zary. He's still a member of the Flames. All indication is that he'll be there at camp. What should the Flames do with Connor Zary here? What does the message need to be for Connor Zary here? Because this seems like a very important year. And in my opinion, this might be the year where the Flames have to try to build an asset up in order to use that asset elsewhere. What do you make of Connor Zary heading into the 26-27 season?
It's a tough one because, it does feel like he's kind of on the outside looking in, especially from like the relationship standpoint between him and Huska. I kind of like the idea of next season kind of prioritizing rebuilding the value of one, Connor Zary, and then the other guy would be Yegor Sharangovich. I would have no issue with Ryan Huska playing the piss out of those two guys and giving them lots of time on the power play and giving them 5-on-5 minutes, and not healthy scratching them, like try to rebuild these guys' value so that, when the day comes, when you do move them, that it's not going to be for, a bag of pucks sort of thing. And I still maintain that Zary I think he has the potential to be a good NHLer. I don't think he's going to be great by any stretch, but I think he's the kind of guy who can probably put up anywhere between, 35 to 45 points, play on your power play, give you some decent minutes at 5-on-5, make some of his line mates better with some of his playmaking and his skill that he has. Like, those types of players are valuable in the NHL. And, if I'm Zary, I'm going to try to really like embrace the defensive side of the game too, just to show that, hey, like, I'm not just a one trick pony, like where I'm not the kind of player who, when I'm not scoring, I'm not really accomplishing a whole heck of a lot on the ice. I think if he focuses on that and he gets a little bit more leash and more of an opportunity from Ryan Huska, I do think that they can rebuild his value. And, number one, I mean, I guess they could trade him, or, I mean, if he steps up this year and he kind of gets back to being the guy he was for the first half of his NHL career, maybe he's a guy you end up keeping on your team as well. Because I thought he was going in such a good direction there between his rookie season and the first half of the 24-25 season. I was watching him and I'm like, this guy looks like he can be like a really good NHL player one day. And then that stupid hit by Drew Hellison on the Ducks happens in January 2025. And just for some reason, he just was never able to put it together after that hit. And, the skating took a step back. He lost the trust from the coaching staff. And, when those two things happen, it's kind of hard to be confident, to be an effective player. So, if he does end up, with the team this year, they're not able to find a trade. I really hope he comes into the season in really good shape, takes a step forward in his skating. And I hope there's maybe like a little bit more trust given to him by Ryan Huska. Because if you're a player like Zary, who I think confidence is a big part of what makes him a good player. If you got a coach that's basically telling you that you're a piece of junk and you don't have a role in this team, and you're getting healthy scratch and you're on the fourth line and you're on the third line and you're center, your wing, you don't really know what you're doing on the team, then it's almost impossible to be a good player. So yeah, if he's on the team next year, I just really hope that he gets an opportunity and he comes in and he's a bit better of a skater. And if those two things happen, I genuinely think that he can rebuild his trade value a little bit. And once again, with the rising salary cap, all of a sudden a $3.775 million player for the next 2 years with no trade protection, a guy that can maybe put up around 40 points, all of a sudden that's a pretty decent piece you can add to your roster if you're a contending team, or even if you're like a rebuilding team and you're just looking to add, good players to the mix. So yeah, that's going to be another interesting thing to watch and see how it all plays out this year.
It wasn't long ago that we were all excited about Connor Zary like we are about Reshny or about Connor Potter coming in. Like, he had that level of, hey, we're excited about what this player could be for the Flames. First round pick. He comes in here and plays with Kadri, and he plays very well as a rookie, and everyone's really excited about this player. And then just a steep drop off and the injury and all that stuff like that. The Flames need to rebuild an image here with this player, and whatever Huska and Connor have between them, that needs to get buried, and these guys both need to be professional about it, and they need to find a way to make it work in the short term here, because there isn't a trade out there without the Flames looking like a little bit foolish here. You can't just take a fourth round pick just to get rid of the player. You got to get value for the player. So you got to kind of build his image up back here again. So I think it's on the Flames here to define him a role, and it's on Connor Zary to take advantage of that role. And I think for me, it's a pretty simple solution. I think I staple him with Michael Backlund, and I say, go to work. Go to work. You have this to work on. Use your feet, make it work. Learn from Michael Backlund, be a big pro. And at the end of the day, if he becomes a player that the Flames can count on and they can keep him, he's a good middle six winger for them. And if he becomes a guy they add into a trade, or they trade and move along because they've rebuilt the value and it's just not working in Calgary, then so be it that way too. I think it's important, though, for the Flames to rebuild the image of Connor Zary a little bit, and for Connor Zary to take advantage of that opportunity and show that he's more than just in and out of the lineup type of forward. He's better than a fourth line forward. He has skill. He has ability. He has some toughness to his game. He's just got to get back to it. He's got to give. I think a lot of it might just be mental. Like you hit it right there, Robert, when you talked about his confidence level. He's got to have it to be a good player. And in order for him to have it, he's got to play. And I know it's kind of a cart before the horse or the chicken and the egg situation. What do you do first? Well, I think it needs to be both sides just need to drop some ego here, be professional about it, and realize what the situation is. It's almost like a last chance for Connor Zary, even though he has another year after this on his contract. it's kind of a make or break year for Connor Zary in the Flames organization here. It already feels like he's on the way out the door. Rebuild your image a little bit, become an effective player, learn to be a more 200-foot type of player, and maybe a guy like Michael Backlund can be the key to the success, or Ryan Strome could be the key to success for Connor Zary. Play the guy with your veteran centerman, and hopefully we can get paid at the end of the day, because I like the player. I've mentioned more than once on the podcast how much I like Connor Zary and what he can bring to the lineup, and I hope he can find that game again, Robert. He can be an important player for the Flames if he can show what made him successful in that rookie season with Kadri beside him.
Yeah, and like the other thing that we didn't mention is that he's just also like he's a beauty. Like you watch this guy's interviews, yeah, like you can tell, like I can guarantee his teammates love him. Like I think he's a really good locker room guy. So yeah, if he can just put it all together, I do think he can be an effective NHL player. What percentage chance do you think you'd have it at that he's at training camp and he's still with the Flames come September?
95.
Oh, that high, hey?
Yeah,
interesting.
If someone was going to pay a second or third round pick for him right now, I think it ought to be done.
That's a fair comment. I think I would go like 60-40, 60% chance that he's in camp, 40 he's not.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like teams, I would imagine there are some teams out there that are looking to fill out their forward lineup, and there's not too many guys left in free agency. I don't think the offer sheets are thin anymore with a whole bunch of guys electing for arbitration. So I think they're going to have to look at the trade route, and I think a guy like Zary, might be the type of player that some teams would look at. I don't think a playoff team would be interested in a guy like Zary, but I could see a team that's kind of rebuilding that maybe wants to bring in a player and take a flyer on him might be interested in him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll put it there, and just once again, if he is there, I hope they treat him well, and I hope it's not like awkward, and I hope the relationship's not completely ruined, because once again, there is a chance for this guy to be a half decent player.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason why he can't be at the National Hockey League level. I know people are making a big deal. There might be friction between him and Huska, and if there is, whatever they have to do, whether it's 12 rounds of bare knuckle boxing or whether it's a game of tiddlywinks or solitaire, whatever it has to be to have those two get on the same page, the Flames need to get it done. Because if you want to trade this guy, you need value. You're not going to get value the way he played last year. And if you want to keep this guy, you need him to be a good player too, to have the ability to be in your lineup. So it's kind of you got to have either way. You've got to have Connor Zary show up and be a better player than he was last year. And the only way for him to do that is to have the opportunity presented to him and to show that he is a better player than that. I wonder as well, is he the kind of guy that the Flames might add to a deal to, per our last conversation, add to the deal to say maybe get a Connor Geekie? Does Connor Zary go the other way, or Shane Wright go the other way as part of that package? That's the way I see him moving this offseason before the season starts. So that's how I see it. It's almost October. In a couple of months here, Robert. The Flames schedule is out. They're going to kick off the season in October on the 1st. They're going to, I'm going to say, a soft start to the schedule with Seattle and Vancouver games to start, but then it turns hard really quickly. What'd you make of the Flames schedule? Are you excited? Are you a schedule guy? I'll flat out admit I'm not a schedule guy. If anyone saw my tweet, it was great. Everyone plays everyone. There's going to be games from October to April. Let's move on. That's how I feel about the schedule release, but I know people get excited because there's dates to it now. We know who's coming when. We know the last game of the Saddledome. What'd you make of the schedule release, and what highlights it for you personally?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not much of a schedule guy. Doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot for me, but I thought there were like a couple interesting things to come from the schedule. I mean, obviously, number one, last game of the Dome will be against the Canucks, and it's cool that it's a rival that's going to be the last game there, but at the same time,
it's not the right rival.
Yeah, especially with where both teams are at. I mean, that game could literally be like whoever loses locks in 32nd place
Yes.
in the league next year. Like it could be, a total tank bowl type of thing. And I don't know if that's all that fun, but kind of is what it is. A couple other things that really stood out to me. Number one, with the time change coming into effect, or the lack of time change now, there's going to be a couple 9 p.m. start times in Calgary. December 26th against the Canucks. Another interesting thing is a Boxing Day game. Normally the NHL doesn't play on Boxing Day, but I'm almost wondering if the NHL is trying to take away a little bit of attention from TSN and the World Juniors, because I mean that's the night the World Juniors always kicks off. So I wonder if they're
What a
trying
mistake, by the way,
from Rogers or TSN.
from Rogers.
Yeah, I mean it's just like, and also it shortens the break for the players too. Like you should give these guys at least like 3 or 4 days off during the holidays. Like I think that's only fair, but once again, Rogers does the wrong thing. Shocking. But yeah, so 9 p.m. start times. I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, we're talking if that game goes to overtime or a shootout, like you're not getting out of the dome until midnight, which is kind of wild. And then there's only 6 Saturday night games at the Dome next year, which I think kind of sucks. There's a lot of afternoon games at the Saddle Dome on Saturdays this year, which I'm not a big fan of, but I'm sure it's nice for families and kids and all that kind of stuff. But like, I love a good Saturday night 8 p.m. start in Calgary.
That's what it should be.
Totally. And the other thing that stood out was just the fact that there's only 4 Battle of Albertas. You know, I wish that there were 5, and I wish that at least like 1 or 2 of them were on a Saturday night. None of them are on Saturdays.
Yeah, I hate that.
Which I think sucks.
Your biggest rival, and it's one of the best rivalries in the game still, even as bad as the Flames can be, that none of them are part of Hockey Night in Canada. None.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a damn shame. And I think the schedule makers screwed that up. So I just wish there was more Battle of Albertas, and I wish there were a couple on a Saturday night. But those are kind of the main things that stood out to me. I mean, like aside from that, there's not a whole heck of a lot going on with that schedule. And, you know, it would have been nice to maybe kick off the season against a bigger rival or a better opponent than Seattle, because they're like the most irrelevant team in the NHL right now. But yeah, that's kind of it for me. Did anything stand out to you or not so much?
Not a damn thing. The only thing that stood out for me is the season starts October 1st. That's what stands out to me. The Flames season kicks off October 1st. We're going to get 84 games. I'm okay with the extra games. Some people aren't. You're going to play everyone home and away. You're going to get your extra games for your divisional guys. You're going to look at those dates when the original 6 guys come through, which will always be awesome. Those are always awesome atmospheres at the Dome. You're going to look at when Crosby comes through, Ovechkin comes through, potentially for the last time. Games like that will be ones that I'll look forward to when they comes closer to those games. But in the middle of July, when the schedule first drops, the only thing I look at is when's the first day that I have to tell my wife that, hey, I'm now booked these nights for the rest of the year because I'm busy with hockey and with my podcasts and stuff. That's the only thing that jumps off the page at me. Like it's fun. I love those that make a big deal out of the schedule. I get why people love doing it. It's just not for me. I guess I'm just old and cranky now. I'm just excited for the season to get going here. I'm excited for less preseason games. I'm excited for more meaningful hockey, hopefully. I'm excited for the last season of the Dome. Excited for what we're going to see at the Dome. I'm excited to watch the younger players get into games and how this team develops. And I'm just excited that it's going to get going here soon. We're in the middle of July. We got about 6-8 weeks till we got training camp going here. So excited for that. Get to enjoy the summer, of course, for sure, because summer's awesome. But for me, the schedule it's just dates on a calendar. I'm not as excited as a lot of other people.
Yeah, you know, like the best part of the schedule is the fact that there's only 4 preseason games. Like, thank God.
And no split squads.
I hated the split squads. Like it's so bad. Yeah, I'm so happy there's only 4 of those. I kind of feel bad for some of those like kind of bubble players that are looking to show that they're NHL players in training camp. Like that's probably doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. I would imagine most teams are going to go into training camp with like, hey, here's our NHL roster. And like, it's going to take a lot for someone who's on the bubble to really work their way into that mix. So I kind of feel bad for those guys, but I mean, like I think last year between the split squad and all the other games, like I think there were 8 preseason games. It's like, what are we doing here?
Ridiculous.
Oh, I think it's just awful.
We'll see a lot of Daryl Sutter style training camps, I think. Here's my NHL 25, 26 players, and the rest of you go over there. I'm busy.
That's the way the Flames should approach it. And then just if you want guys to prove that they want a shot at the NHL or deserve a shot, let them do it in the American Hockey League for the first month or 2 of the season. And then you can maybe call some guys up. But I always thought the preseason was useless. I mean, you know, like last year, for example, with Rory Cairns, Rory Cairns played really well, but we also have to keep in mind that, you know, he's playing against other teams, you know, veteranless lineups. I mean, like there's probably 8 to 10 veterans like playing in those games. Like a lot of these players don't care. Like they're just trying not to get injured. So the preseason is a terrible way to show who's playing well and who's not, because it's just not even close to like a regular season NHL game. So, in that respect, like I hope the Flames, they kind of pick their NHL roster and then they'll just tell their guys like, hey, like this roster that we have on opening night for October 1st, this is not set in stone for the next month or two. Like if you go down in the American Hockey League and you play really well and you show that you should be playing in the NHL, we'll call you up, but you're going to start down there. And I think there'd be, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, gone are the days of Michael Backlund and friends to Seattle to play the Kraken, while the Kraken send Beniers and friends to Calgary, and we just see the home team just lambaste the visitors because that is an ECHL roster playing an NHL roster. Gone are those days, and thank goodness. So the schedule's here. The Flames will start on October 1st. Excited about that. Robert, anything else you want to bring up on the show this week? If not, what's coming up from you guys on flamesnation.ca, and where can the folks find your work?
Yeah, just more off-season content and trying to come up with as many ideas as possible. It's not easy to do, but we're grinding. We're grinding over there. So yeah, follow Flames Nation on all your social media channels. And then I got an article coming out today at flamesnation.ca looking at the defense pairings. So check that out. And just follow me. I changed my @ on X. It's no longer Ring of Fire. It's now @ Robert_Munich. So yeah, check that out on Twitter.
I'm going to screw that up so many times between now and when I actually learn how to say it properly. So go find him wherever you do your social medias. I am Vintage Johnny 84 across social media. And of course, the show is Red Mile Rundown wherever you get your podcasts. Again, want to thank everyone for helping making last week's episode the most listened to, downloaded show ever. Appreciate you so much and appreciate you finding the show. Tell your friends, tell your family, and don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We will see you next week here on the Red Mile Rundown. Enjoy your weeks. Be safe, everyone, and enjoy the hot summer weather.